Crime and violence continue to be a concern. Newly appointed head of the NPA in the Western Cape, Nicolette Bell, has vowed to prioritise the fight against crime, including mass murders, gender-based violence, kidnapping and organised crime syndicates, among others. Bell shed a light on some of the cases her office is dealing with. eNCA's Ayesha Ismail is following that story for us, and she joins us live now. Ayesha, you spoke to the newly appointed Director of Public Prosecutions in the Western Cape about how she's going to tackle crime in the province. So what exactly are her plans?
So one of the first things that Advocate Nicolette Bell did when she was appointed as the Director of Public Prosecutions was to fill vacancies, and she said that was very important, and while there are still a few vacancies available, she says she hopes to fill those by the end of the year. What she's also done is she has prioritised certain cases, and as you said, she's prioritised crimes against women and children, extortion, kidnapping, organised crime, murders, mass murders in particular, and of course she talked about organised crime. And what she has done is she has appointed very senior prosecutors to deal with these matters, and also has specialised units. She also says that it's very important for the prosecutors to work with SAPS, because the prosecution's case is only as good as the evidence and the support they get from the South African Police Service. Now, you will also recall that Becky Cele recently, when he was in Khayelitsha dealing with those terrible mass murders that have taken place, where he said that, you know, people often accuse the police of not making arrests. But he said, and he used an example of one of the mass murders that took place there, where police arrested somebody and within a few days that person was out on bail and re-offended. But this is what Nicolette Bell had to say about how the courts deal with bail.
We must all remember that an accused has a constitutional right to apply for bail. The role of the prosecutor is to protect the interest of society, the community, the state. But we're also officers of the court. We have to present the evidence to court as to why we're opposing bail. And bail is said to assure the attendance of the accused to court, not necessarily an indication of the guilt. But factors that the court do take into account is the seriousness of the offence and whether the accused would pose a risk to the community. So in most serious matters, or in all the matters that the General has alluded to, especially the mass murders in Khayelitsha, we have opposed bail. We did put the evidence before the court, but it is ultimately to the discretion of the presiding officer to grant bail or not to grant bail.
Ayesha, we've heard over and over again about the DNA backlog and how cases get thrown out of court due to a lack of DNA evidence. What's the plan on that?
Well, Advocate Bell says, and she says she's very proud to say, that certainly in the Western Cape, they've managed to reduce the DNA backlog, and she says that they've been working with laboratories in order to prioritise cases where DNA results are needed in courts. This is what she had to say.
A few months ago, there were issues with DNA. We've had a special project with the South African Police Service where we now prioritize DNA matters. So we no longer struck matters from the court roll because of DNA. The project has been so successful that we've rolled it out, the DNA project, to DNA where murders are as well, where we monitor it. So if we know a case is coming on in a few weeks and we don't have the results, we can contact the lab and they prioritize that DNA analysis. So that's really worked positive for us.
Ayesha, you say Nicolette Bell is also going to prioritise crimes against women and children. That's not something new. We've heard that from numerous people before across government, both nationally and provincially. How is she going to make that a reality?
So already the Western Cape has 7 Tutuzela care centres, and these are centres where women who have been victims of sexual crimes or being where women felt that they've been abused, they can come to these centres and they will then be counselled there, they will be treated there, and they will be prepared to tell them what they would face should they appear in court and what about the court process. But she's also saying that she's particularly concerned about crimes against children, and I was quite shocked when she was telling me about cases of child deaths that they are dealing with in the Cape High Court. Let's take a listen to what she had to say about this.
Look, sometimes it's accidental, sometimes it's family who's got problems, trauma. Children are unfortunately abused in the province, where it's parents, caregivers that kill children, that assault them.
Last question for you, Ayesha. How has the new head of the NPA in the Western Cape been received?
Well, it would appear as if, it's so far so good. We've seen her dealing with a number of crimes, high profile matters, and as I said, she has prioritized certain crimes, and these include crimes against women and children, corruption, and also organised crime and gang violence in the Western Cape. But she's also not only dealing with that, those involved in corruption as well as tax evasion are also being dealt with.
Right, thank you so much, eNCA's Ayesha Ismail, bringing us that story from the Western Cape.